Support for Political Breakfast comes from Chicory Wealth, offering fee-only financial life planning and socially conscious investing, helping people to not only work toward financial well-being, but to use those resources to improve the wider community, be that social, justice, the environment, education, the arts, or other issues. Chicory Wealth, integrating money and meaning. You can find more information at chicorywealth.com.
You love free, and at Ameris Bank, so do we. That's why we're proud to offer worry-free, hassle-free Ameris Bank free checking. Manage your money your way with convenient access to digital, mobile, and telephone banking, all with no monthly service fee or minimum balance requirements. At Ameris Bank, we're with you. For more information or to open an account, visit our local bankers in person or online at amerisbank.com/free checking. Other fees such as overdraft fees may apply. Ameris Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome back for another edition of Political Breakfast. Here we are. It's election day, and we are taping this exciting week here in Georgia, finally here. A lot to talk about, but first we got to talk about the Falcons. The Falcons are what, 6-3 now? Some incredible stuff there taking place out on the field with our Atlanta Falcons. And yes, I'm claiming them now, with our Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. What a difference a few weeks make, right? No, listen, real quick. I know we got to talk about elections. Just huge shout out to this resilient team. The thing that stood out to me the most, yes, we've been talking about Kirk Cousins. Yes, Bijan Robinson is definitely getting the touches. Drake London has really come on and did a great job. Mooney has been catching a lot of deep balls. And then finally, Kyle Pitts is, being actually utilized. But the defense, Lisa, stepped up this week. I mean, you got Grady Jarrett. Shout out to my boy Grady, who's getting sacks. We're getting to the quarterback. Secondary has been balling all season. Our linebackers are playing good. So we have a really, really good team. People definitely are taking the Falcons seriously in the league. And we got a couple of games that are going to be tough. We got the Saints coming up this week, and then we also got to travel out to Denver to play the Broncos.
I had to catch it mainly on the radio because I was driving back from Jacksonville, where the Dogs had an okay win. I think people are a little concerned about track for competition when we're turning the ball over so many times, but it was still a great time. Thanks to John and Emily Howell of Jefferson for hosting my wife and I at their lovely home in St. Simons. It was one hell of a fun weekend.
Sounds
and
like
politics free.
Politics free.
Darren may know a lot more about what's going on than I do because I've been a little bit out of it for a couple of days. I will admit it.
Well, what was going on in the stands at the Georgia game? There was some fighting going on there. I don't know. I keep watching the video and trying to see.
So I think a lot of people took advantage of that to have a lot of outdoor cocktails.
Started drinking.
Yeah, there was a lot of drinking.
Boy, that cop was relentless there. I said there was a lot of drinking going on or something we didn't know about. Yeah.
Well, I wish the cop had come to find the guy standing in front of me who wouldn't quit standing in his seat. I was ready to see him get his head beat in. So, I just think people, when you have a little too much, you got something coming to you.
Yeah, well, we have made it to election week finally, and here we are. We've been talking a lot about the presidential election, the presidential polls, and we think it'll be over here in Georgia tonight. Do we still stand there? Do you guys still think we'll know where Georgia at least stands by tonight?
Let me start there because we saw the Secretary of State say a week and a half ago that with 70% of the vote coming in early vote, that those votes by state law must be counted by 8 p.m. So we're going to have a huge number drop at 8 p.m. tonight. That's going to give us a good idea of the direction. There are a couple of things that I think are going to keep this super tight in Georgia. And I want to say, for those of you who heard the live show last week and have heard Tharon and I speak elsewhere, I felt very good about Republican chances here in Georgia and was fairly convinced that Trump was going to win Georgia by a margin of 6 figures. I think it's going to be tighter than that now. The Democrats have had a strong closing couple of days in early vote. I'm concerned that 56% of the electorate remains women because of the gender gap that we're seeing in the polling. You're going to need to see a fairly big male turnout on election day, one that closes that gap a little bit. It's too late to close it all the way because most of the vote's already in. So Republicans who haven't voted yet, independents who want to vote for Trump, don't think this is in the bag. I think this could be another photo finish here in Georgia. And I think across the nation, there are several states, Pennsylvania being another one, where it's just too close to call. And I would now put Georgia much more in that too close to call than I would have a week ago. Y'all heard me. I was very confident. And the Dems have had what they need to make this a little more competitive. Trump still should have an edge, but it's anybody's game.
So you think we're going to be in that too close to call zone this evening as well, Tharon?
I totally agree with Brian. I mean, he's right. Let's take our listeners and shout out to everyone who came out and participated in the live recording. Coming into that recording last week, I was still very optimistic, and I think it showed through my, sort of tone and enthusiasm and nonverbals. But, Brian felt very emboldened. I think he's right. I mean, I think the Trump campaign has actually run a very, very well sort of what we call a full comprehensive campaign. Yes, they spend a lot of money on television, but what's really changed, Lisa, and this is why I want people to think about as we are voting today or looking for the results to come out. The Republicans did something in the state that they've never done before. Not only did they cannibalize their early vote, which is something that they never really strategically participated in that directly. When I hear that folks were being told, hey, go vote now. The other thing that I saw late Friday is that there were still roughly about 200,000 people out there that usually vote early and will identify Republicans that still had not voted. What you just heard B-Rob talk about is that they're depending on a lot of those folks who come out on Election Day. But what really changed the game is that absentee voting this year was even paid more attention to by Republicans and Democrats, because Democrats, we learned how to do it in 2020. We had to because of COVID-19. But as Brian mentioned, what gives me so much optimism, Lisa, are those last couple days of early voting, that Thursday and Friday, when you saw these Democratic counties start to up their margins as far as people who are participating. And then lastly, I hate to be this direct again, but this election is going to come down to women. It's going to come down to college-educated, disaffected Republican women, young women, Black women, Asian women, Latino women. And so women have played such a pivotal part in the early vote numbers. And I think that the Republicans now are starting to look up and say, hey, we not only need more men to come out on Election Day, have they done everything they can to persuade these unmotivated voters, particularly a lot of them are women, who are just so upset about what they've been enduring with these campaign ads, and will reproductive rights, reproductive freedom be front and center of why people believe that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are better for their future. But it's still going to be very close today. I encourage everyone to stay in line, go and vote. And we've seen the Republicans, but I know we'll get into it in a little bit, Lisa, come out and sort of questioning the absentee ballot process. A lot of voters had to take their absentee ballots to locations, and you've seen some Republicans come out recently as yesterday talking about, how they want to make sure that the legal teams are in place to question how these absentee ballots are going.
Yeah, can I say, because I've had to get some clarity on that issue that Tharon is talking about there. It was the big brouhaha over the weekend that some counties were accepting ballots in their in county offices. I do want to point out this is not a rule like what we've been discussing with the state election board. This is something that is allowed in the law. I do think it's important. It's too late now because this is an election day, but it's important for the counties who do this to allow poll watchers. I just think that will enhance public confidence in the process. We don't need to be having a big distraction in the last days over what is essentially a few hundred votes. I do want to tell Republicans who are concerned about it that in Fulton, you're talking about 300 and something votes, most of which were in North Fulton. So in the area of the county that actually would have the most Republican votes coming in that way. So I know this is not some bizarre scheme. It is within the law. And look, as I've continued to say, if you have a problem with the law, change the law. And I think we'll probably have a few cleanup things in 2025 when it comes to election law. Some of the stuff that the state election board did that got thrown out because of the timing and because of the board exceeding its authority. The General Assembly has that authority. So if they want to put in there that you've got to count all the ballots to make sure that it matches the number of voters, I think that's sensible. I don't think that's nuts, but it needs to be in law, not a rule passed by unelected appointees.
Brian, thank you for saying that, because on Saturday and Sunday morning, while you were at the recovering from the Georgia-Florida game, and shout out to the dogs, I was on CNN with Ryan Mahoney, who's a good guy, but he's no B-Rob. And so we started later on that day on Sunday, this past weekend, starting to see these reports about Republicans saying that, particularly, you're right, the Fulton County office in North Fulton is not being transparent. They're not allowing people to see them except the absentee ballots and how they were counted. I want to report on this podcast that it was always the intent of the office to be transparent. And what they did, they moved the counting down to the lobby, right? And they were able to do this in front of everyone. And so while we saw the Republicans sort of allowing this process to almost put Georgia back in the national spotlight in a negative way, I mean, it was a national article. I want to commend these local elected officials, these ballot people who are counting these ballots in these offices to do it the right way. But I appreciate you saying that, Brian, because we can't allow there to be any more doubt in this process. And so just to, again, to recap, these were what people are told to do. Lisa, it's been a law in the state of Georgia that if for some ever reason you don't have the confidence that your absentee ballot is going to be mailed in time, even though as long as you get it postmarked by Election Day, it'll be fine. But these people have been told by Republican operatives and Democratic operatives to just take your absentee ballot to that county local election location. And so they were doing what they were supposed to do. But there were some Republicans, I won't name them, who were going to dramatize this issue. And there was one particular Republican, the state senator, who did dramatize it. But then he came back on his Twitter account and he said, it was handled properly. But it's just so much sensitivity around how votes are being counted in Georgia. And I hope that we don't have any major issues at the voting precincts today.
Support for Political Breakfast comes from Chicory Wealth, offering fee-only financial life planning and socially conscious investing, helping people to not only work toward financial well-being, but to use those resources to improve the wider community, be that social, justice, the environment, education, the arts, or other issues. Chicory Wealth, integrating money and meaning. You can find more information at chicorywealth.com.
You love free, and at Ameris Bank, so do we. That's why we're proud to offer worry-free, hassle-free Ameris Bank free checking. Manage your money your way with convenient access to digital, mobile, and telephone banking, all with no monthly service fee or minimum balance requirements. At Ameris Bank, we're with you. For more information or to open an account, visit our local bankers in person or online at amerisbank.com/free checking. Other fees such as overdraft fees may apply. Ameris Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pride as well. I talked to a lot of people over the weekend who said they're holding out, going to the polls today, just out of nostalgia. They didn't want to cast ballots early on because they like going to the polls on Election Day. So, I'll be watching that really closely because, that's good to see as well. Just that pride, people walking up, to the polls and the voting box on Election Day and casting their ballot as well. There are a lot of races out there other than the presidential race that, that's affecting Georgia as well. And we haven't talked about Fani Willis in a long, long time. And she's one of those names that's on the ballot today, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I got home on Sunday night from Jacksonville. I had a virus. I was in bed, had a fever. But I had the Falcons and the game after that on TV. I could hear it, couldn't watch it. I could hear it. And I heard a Fani Willis campaign ad here in the closing days attacking her Republican opponent, who's somebody I know, Courtney Kramer, as a partisan, it was a very personal attack on Courtney. Now, that's not what you do in the closing days unless you see something alarming. Fani Willis is a Democrat in a Democratic county that Harris is going to win by a wide margin. I wonder if she saw some polling that concerned her campaign, and they felt the need to go remind people that Courtney is a Trump Republican. That's the only thing I can think of. Her case against Trump and the co-defendants, her case against Young Thug, all of this seems to have fallen apart. All of this stuff that we associate with her, the most high-profile cases, seem to have collapsed around her. And I will point out, I have been saying all along for years now that she had overreached to dramatic effect, and I'm being proved right at the end of the day. So I think Fani Willis is going to underperform. I don't know how it's possible for her to lose in Fulton County in this environment. I would be interested to hear Tharon's thoughts. But she must be seeing something that ain't great, and she is going to underperform Kamala Harris in this race.
Nah, B-Rob. Look, I don't know District Attorney Fani Willis, and Lisa, I've been told to refer to her as District Attorney, not by her, but by many of her supporters. She's just a person who believes that when you go against her and you try her, she's going to crush you. And I think that the double down or the negative attacks of her opponent is just how District Attorney Fani Willis has always sort of entered her political campaigns and opponents. You're right. She's going to win. She will not lose this race in Fulton County. However, you have seen not only Republicans, you've seen some other groups come out and sort of support her opponent. But I think that, look, there's always fundamentals. You're going to hear me talk about this in a little bit. I'm sure we're going to go back to why Kamala Harris is going to not only win Georgia, but win the presidency, is that she's got the money. She hasn't done anything really B-Rob other than what Republicans are stirring up to get herself beat. She know that her opponent was very seriously. That's why she raised a lot of money early on and started getting surrogates to go out there and work hard for her. And so I don't think that there's anything in the polling that shows that she's gained, any sort of ground, her being Kramer. I think there's just that Fani Willis knows that she's got to send a message to not only to the county, but to this opponent, because I think that she's anticipating that this won't be the last time that many Republicans and some Democrats will come after her. But from what I know, just people who know her well, again, I haven't spoken with her, that says that she's not only fundraising, she's campaigning, she's knocking on doors, she's hosting events. She spent a lot of money on television, a lot of money on mail ads. I mean, she's trying to crush her opponent. But I don't know Mrs. Kramer that well, but I do see a few of her signs in areas that I frequent. I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Kelly Loeffler has been a pretty big supporter of hers as well.
I saw the two of them together last week. Yeah.
And just comment on the Young Thug case. There's been kind of mixed reactions to that, but I would say this: I think that this man was in jail for 2.5 years. He apologized. He took responsibility for his charges / crimes, and now he's got to go on and to try to live his life. And I think I'm a big believer in second chances, but I do think that this case did highlight some of the challenges we were having, not only in our city, but in our county with gang violence, and how rap lyrics can be sort of misconstrued or can be used in certain cases in this case. So I think that there are a lot of people out there that feel like that case could have went either way. Some people feel it went the right way. Some people feel it didn't go the right way. But ultimately, I think Fani Willis will win this race and will do everything she can to not only beat her opponent, but I think you'll see her really come out tonight after she's victorious and talk about all the things that she plans to do ahead.
Just let me put this marker down, just because I love to take chances. I think she underperforms Kamala Harris in the election tonight. And here's why. Obviously, Republicans are going to make sure to go down the ballot to vote against her because they're mad about the Trump case that they think is ridiculous and it's cost taxpayers a lot of money they shouldn't have ever spent to begin with. And two, I think a lot of the Democrat base thinks the Young Thug RICO case was overreach. So I think she's got a problem on both sides. She's not going to lose. I'm not saying that. That's crazy. She's going to win by a healthy margin. But that's why I think the marker is the Harris number. How far below Harris does she run? Or not, but I think she runs below Harris's mark, and that's an indicator of some unease when it comes to her amongst Republicans and Democrats. Just a guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Hank Johnson, District 4.
Now, my brother from another mother, Hank Johnson, definitely will win big. They love him in District 4, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah, and we got Nikema Williams and Lucy McBath.
All safe seats.
The thing with Nikema is, she's been running a campaign as a congresswoman for re-election, but also being very visible as the chair of the Democratic Party. But Lucy McBath is one too that has run a really good race. She's running against a guy who I've actually met, and he's been reaching out to Democrats in the district. But we talk about margins. I mean, let's see how well Lucy McBath will do in her race, and does this sort of position her to possibly look at a 2026 bid for something higher.
Is there any one race Republicans are watching closely, Brian?
Nothing on the congressional level. All of our incumbents are in safe seats at this juncture, so nothing to watch there at all. I agree the things to watch. I agree with Tharon is looking at the margins of candidates who might be looking at statewide race in 2026. Lucy McBath is certainly on that list. I can't really think of many others other than Buddy Carter down in the first district of Georgia on the coast. I think he's looking to run for something statewide, maybe that U.S. Senate seat against John Ossoff, maybe for governor. But I think a lot of that's going to be clarified in the next 30 days. I think we get this election in, unless we have some big controversy that drags things out, I think you're going to begin to see some big announcements. Everybody's waiting to see what Brian Kemp's going to do, right? If Brian Kemp's not going to run for anything, he's going to hold his powder dry until 2028 and run for president, then that opens up everything. And I think you're going to see a stampede of announcements, or at least a lot of people floating trial balloons that they're looking at running for something.
Lisa, if there's one race that, and these candidates who actually listen to this podcast, they got on me about not talking about this race, and you touched on it probably months ago, but we got to talk about the post 3 Atlanta City Council race.
I was going to say city council. Is that on the radar? Well,
I'm going to do my part because I know pretty much all of the candidates who are running. So real quick for our listeners, if you live in the city of Atlanta, this is a citywide position. So this is the position that our now mayor, Andre Dickens, once had. He vacated to run for mayor. Former city councilwoman Keisha Sean Waits left the seat to run unsuccessfully for Fulton County clerk. You got 5 candidates. You got Ishay Collins, who's currently a school board member. You got Dr. Nikki Jones, who's an educator. You got Dr. DeJuan Robinson, who ran unsuccessfully for Fulton County tax commissioner. You have this young guy, Devin Barrington Ward, who's worked on some campaigns in the state of Georgia. And then you have Amber Connor, who's someone from the Buckhead area, a white woman who's been very active in the Buckhead community for a long time. And so, this is a race that should go to a runoff, but it hasn't gotten the sort of publicity that it needs. But this is going to be filling a vacated seat, and it's a citywide race. So if you're a City of Atlanta voter, you will be able to vote on this election today. And I left out one other race, DeKalb County. We have 2 commission seats there. You guys know that Lorraine Cochran Johnson, who now is the CEO-elect, she vacated her seat to run for CEO, and she was victorious. And then Larry Johnson, who vacated his commission seat, who was not victorious in the CEO's race. And I know Brian loves DeKalb County, but these are 2 races that are going on there locally as well. And then you got some incumbents, Nicole Love Henderson and Gwinnett, Lisa Cupid and Cobb, Carletta Harrow and Henry. A lot of these commission chairs are up for election as well.
Yeah, those are big-time races. They're really meaningful to day-to-day life. And let me reiterate, going off of what Tharon said, that I am a DeKalb voter and I am disenfranchised in the CEO race. I don't have a choice. I went in there and the Democrat, the CEO-elect, was the only option on my ballot. That should be a nonpartisan race if it's going to be done at all. Because if we're going to be a one-party county, let's just make it a nonpartisan race. I mean, a Democrat's going to win regardless, so it's not a partisan ploy on my part. Just give me a voice. We will help moderate the eventual selection. We will play an important role, so let Republicans have a say. The races I'm looking at tonight, Lisa, that are particular note, state Senate, the race up in Gwinnett between a Democrat challenger named Ramaswamy and the Republican incumbent Sean Steele. That's going to be one that is the only competitive one in the state Senate. Very important. On the state House side, right here in Tharon's area, Deborah Silcox versus Susie Greenberg, the Democrat. Deborah Silcox is the Republican incumbent. Deborah's a great member. I do hope she gets reelected, but that's going to be a tight one. And then one no one is talking about is a new district after redistricting down in Middle Georgia, West Bibb and Monroe County. The Monroe County part is very Republican. The West Bibb part is very Democrat. And it should have been a Democrat district, but it's very competitive. The Republican there, Noah Harbuck, has really given the Democrat Tangi Herring a run for her money. So that'll be one that I'm keeping a close eye on. And another redistricting race is Ken Vance, a Republican incumbent in Milledgeville. That's now a majority black district, but he's overperforming as well, given that. So those two in Middle Georgia are a very big interest to me.
Yeah, I'll say this real quick. Tangi Herring is running a phenomenal campaign. The reason why this race is close is because Republicans have dumped a lot of money into that seat. But I hear that Noah, I don't know him, but I hear he's a little out of touch for that district. He's got some extreme positions that he's taken that I think that the voters in the district are not necessarily agreeing on. But, I think that is definitely a battleground area that Democrats will hold on to. But then we also got to see if we're able to pick up some stuff in Gwinnett.
All right, so a lot to sort through other than the presidential races, and we'll find that out tomorrow morning when we all wake up to the numbers and hopefully the final numbers, but we won't know that for sure. We're going to do a live edition of Political Breakfast come Wednesday morning on Morning Edition, so we'll look forward to chatting then.
Great. We need some men to show up on election day for sure. Should we? If men have been sitting on the sidelines, put your vest on, finance bros, and get to the polls.
And women, y'all are my favorite demographic. Keep doing what you're doing. I hope that you know that this is a private matter. And
Come
vote your
monitor
heart
some of
and
the
your
polls
conscience.
and see what they look like. Let's go see
Yeah,
who's standing in line
Come
today.
through, women. Come through.
All right, see y'all soon.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast.
We are in the final stretch of this historic election season. Former President Trump and Vice President Harris are making their last big push before it all comes to a head on November 5th. I'm Scott Detrow. Join us for live special coverage of Election Night 2024 from NPR News. We will bring you the latest as the polls close and the vote totals roll in, with the context and analysis you need to stay informed.
Listen to our Election Night specials starting Tuesday night at 7 on WABE 90.1.